Today's headline is The Wee Cry in the Night. The subheadline says, Finding a lost child in the night, taking it home and finding it to be his own. This story originally came from the St. Louis Globe-Democrat. It says, My name is Anthony Hunt. I am a drover and live 9 miles away upon the western prairie. There wasn't a house in sight when I first moved here, my wife and I, and now we have not many neighbors, though those we have are good ones. One day, about 10 years ago, I went away from home to sell about 50 head of cattle, fine creatures as I ever saw. I was to buy some groceries and dry goods before I came back, and above all, a doll for our youngest Dolly. She had never had a stored doll of her own, only rag babies her mother made her. Dolly could talk of nothing else, and went down to the very gate to call after me to get a big one. Nobody but a parent can understand how full my mind was of the toy, and how when the cattle were sold, the first thing I hurried off to buy was Dolly's doll. I found a large one with the eyes that would open and shut when you pulled a wire, and had it wrapped up in a paper and tucked it under my arm, while I had the parcels of calico and delaine and tea and sugar put up. Then, late as it was, I started for home. It might have been more prudent to stay until morning, but I felt anxious to get back and eager to hear Dolly's praises about her doll. I was mounted on a steady-going old horse and pretty well loaded. Night set in before I was a mile from town, and settled down as dark as pitch while I was in the middle of the darkest bit of road I know of. I could have felt my way, though I remembered it so well, and when the storm that had been brewing broke and pelted the rain in torrents, I was 5 miles or maybe 6 miles from home. I rode as fast as I could, but all of a sudden, I heard a little cry like a child's voice. I stopped short and listened. I heard it again. I called, and it answered me. I couldn't see a thing. All was as dark as pitch. I got down and felt around in the grass, called again, and again was answered. Then I began to wonder. I'm not timid, but I was known to be a drover and to have money about me. It might be a trap to catch me unawares and rob and murder me. I'm not superstitious, not very, but how could a real child be out on the prairie in such a night, at such an hour? I might be more than human. The bit of a coward that hides itself in most men showed itself to me then, but once more I heard the cry and said I, if any man's child is hereabouts, Anthony Hunt is not the man to let it die. I searched again. At last I bethought me of a hollow under the hill and groped that way. Sure enough, I found a little dripping thing that moaned and sobbed as I took it in my arms. I called my horse and the beast came to me and I mounted and tucked the little soak thing under my coat as well as I could, promising to take it home to Mama. It seemed so tired, and pretty soon cried itself to sleep on my bosom. It had slept there over an hour when I saw my own windows. There were lights in them, and I supposed my wife had lit them for my sake. But when I got into the doorway, I saw something was the matter and stood still with a dread fear of heart 5 minutes before I could lift the latch. At last I did it, and saw the room full of neighbors and my wife amid them weeping. When she saw me, she hid her face. Oh, don't tell him, she cried, it will kill him. What is it, neighbors? I cried. Nothing now, I hope. What's that you have in your arm? A poor lost child, said I. I've found it on the road. Take it, will you? I've turned faint. And I lifted the sleeping thing and saw the face of my own child, my Dolly. It was my own darling and none other that I had picked up on the drenched road. My little child had wandered out to meet Papa and the doll while her mother was at work, and they were lamenting her as one dead. I thanked heaven on my knees before them. It is not much of a story, neighbors, but I think of it often at nights and wonder how I could bear to live now if I had not stopped when I heard the cry for help upon the road, hardly louder than a squirrel's chirp. That's Dolly yonder with her mother in the meadow, a girl worth saving, I think, but then I'm her father impartial maybe, the prettiest and sweetest thing on this side of the Mississippi. This story comes from the great state of Georgia, being reported in the Weekly Constitution of December 9th, 1884. Thank you for joining us today. If you want to continue to uncover all of America's lost and forgotten history, then remember before you leave to hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and remember to like and comment below. And we will see you next time on Americana Archives.